Hello, welcome to my channel. I am Laken and I am here to share all of my December daily progress videos with you. So if you have been around and you've been watching all of my Vlogmas videos, I have shared each of my December progress clips as part of my Vlogmas day in the life vlogs, at least for the first 20 days of the month. And I like doing it that way because if you watch the vlog the day before, you can see how I document it the next day and you can enjoy the December daily progress videos as December goes on. But one of the things I realized, well, two things I realized. One is that if someone wants to go back and watch them, which I know I do that, I will go back and watch like all of Ali Edwards' December daily process videos. Now my videos are not near as exciting or crafty as hers are, but if somebody ever wants to go back and watch all of them, it's very sporadic, right? It's all throughout the month. Whereas in years past, I have done like specific December daily videos. The other thing that I realized is that the last 4 or 5 days of the month, I was not going to include anywhere in a video. So what I decided to do was not only film those last 4 to 5 days, but then that you haven't seen yet, and then make a compilation video that has all of my December daily clips from start to finish. And that is what this video is gonna be. So if you followed along in December, you don't need to watch days 1 through 20, you've already seen those. Go ahead and jump to day 21, the timestamp is in the description box. But if you're watching from the beginning or re-watching for inspiration for the new year, let's get into day 1. Well, technically day 0, it's my reason why page.
All right, so I start by grabbing a full page protector that I'm gonna put my full 6x8 photo in, and then I go to pick out a transparency to put on top of it. Like I said, I pretty much start or have started every one of my December daily albums exactly the same, with a 6x8 photo of my tree and then a transparency on top. So I went with this, May your days be merry and bright, and then I went and dug out my numbers because I wanted to find a way to put 2022 on here and mark the year. That's the other way I always start it, so I know what year we're looking at. And I went with these black numbers, these tall skinny ones that fit almost perfectly in that corner of the white space behind the tree. And this is when speeding up really helps because it took me a very long time to get those lined up and it's still not perfect. But then I knew I wanted to add a star at the top of my tree. I kind of, unless it's decorated and you can see the star, I also pretty much always do that. And then kind of to balance out the star at the top and the 2022, I wanted to put some more stars in the corner. And there's something about like doing 3 things. So I pretty much knew I wanted to do 3 stars, and I'm playing with all the different types of stars that I have to figure out which 3 I want to kind of put in the corner of that transparency. Then I want to find a full page to put on the back where I'm going to write my story talking about the fact that the tree's not decorated and talking a little bit more about my reason why. And for a long time, I considered doing this red wreath and just writing in the center of that wreath. But then I decided I wanted to have a little bit more space to write. So I picked this red tree one, but no, I don't want all that space to write. So I'm looking for a big decorative like saying or piece to kind of take up a lot of space on that page. And I really like this corkboard right now because that's kind of the whole purpose, is that it's right now. And I ultimately decide to put it in the center, but then I'm going to trim off the bottom so that it's not the full circle. It's not really a half circle either. It's kind of like 2/3 of the circle. And then I think that I want to add like a little star or heart right above it. And I almost stick down this little like plastic star. And then I remember that I'm putting the star at the top, and I wanted to see how that looked before I put another star on the same page. So I glue the 2 pages together and then stick the star at the top, and I stick it on both sides because it's going to stick up. And I like things sticking out of my album. I'm cool with that. But I knew I didn't want to have like the exact same star on the bottom. So I ended up picking this little red heart sticker to go on the right now. Then I get to writing. So I start with a header. I write my reason why at the top in cursive. And then I start talking about the fact that it's December 1st and the tree is still not decorated. And that between having my family in town for Thanksgiving, being sick, and also trying to soak up all of the time that we can. Whenever a friend is like, do you want to hang out? I'm like, yes, because we are going to miss our friends so much when we move that I just haven't had time to decorate the tree. And that is how my album is going to start this year, is with a photo of our undecorated tree. But that is the purpose of this project for me, is documenting exactly how my life looks this December in this exact year. I mean, I'm doing it day by day so that it looks exactly as it is right now. But then of course I add one little line that says, while also looking for the magic that comes in December and this time of year. So then I stick that in the page protector, and then I go ahead and stick these pages in the album. Oh, here I'm looking for, I thought there was going to be a plastic thing on this transparency and I could not find it. So I stick it in the album so I know where it lays on top of the photo. And then I'm trying to figure out where I want to place those 3 little stars. And that's it. That's my first day. It's pretty simple, but I really love how it turned out.
All right, so I have this 4x6 photo that I snapped at the bar last night, and I'm looking for a pattern paper or some sort of journal card to go in the other slot. I figured I was just going to do 2 4x6, and I go through a bunch of different options and end up going with this kind of twinkle pattern. I felt like it just kind of resembled the lights in the bar. And those pages are 10x8 for the 10x8 album. So I cut that down into just one 4x6 so I can put that opposite my photo. Then I start going through the numbers, trying to decide what number 1 I'm going to use. And I really wanted a big one that could overlap both, but I didn't like the way that gray one looked. So I picked the white and gold one, which was new this year. And originally I had that on the photo, and I thought about journaling on the patterned paper. So I'm going through my stickers here, trying to find another little sticker embellishment that I can add to the pattern paper to take up a little bit of space. And I end up actually pulling out this black rectangle that I'm going to eventually put on the photo. And I decide that I really like this big gold together. I feel like the gold goes really well with the other page, and the concept of being together is the whole purpose of this story. And while I do like it right there on the photo, I end up moving it down to the pattern paper and then using this black rectangle on the photo that I'm going to write what's going on and actually not do a whole lot of journaling. So I stick the together down on the pattern, and then I also add little stars like I talked about yesterday, kind of a pattern of 3, having 3 stars, and I glue down that number 1, and then I just write simply Karaoke Nights at Sunswick, which is the name of the bar, just for my memory. So I know that's how I typically spend a lot of Thursday nights at the bar singing karaoke.
Today I had the picture from last night that I took at my friend's apartment, and then I also had our little holiday bingo card that I knew I wanted to include the actual bingo card. So step 1 was me trying to decide what number I wanted to use, and man, I struggled to figure out what number 2. So I switched to figuring out what I wanted to put in the journal card spot. And for a while, I thought I was going to use this quote, but then I kept looking and I finally started flipping through some of the pattern papers, and I sort of wanted to do something green to kind of offset the red of the Hallmark bingo card. And so I thought maybe I would use a pattern and put one of these big words on it, these big word phrases, but none of them really seemed to resonate with the story that I wanted to tell. Even flipped through the stickers and there was nothing there either, but I did really like this pattern green. So then I tried to fit the number on the green. What number 2 could I put on this green pattern paper? And I didn't really like any of it. Like none of it really seemed to stick with me. I didn't like any of my number options. And so what I finally decided to do was take the bag from last year's advent calendar and cut it down and use that on the green pattern paper. So I'm cutting the green pattern paper to a 4x6, and then I cut the 2 and I cut it as close as possible, basically, which I immediately regret and wish that it was bigger. So I go off to find another pattern to put behind the 2 because I just want more before it hits the green. And I end up going with this red with gold that matches really well with the red from the bingo card. So I put the 2 down on the red little stars and cut that down to put onto the 4x6 journal card. So once I have that adhered down, then I go on the hunt for another embellishment, something that I can add to the photo as well as to the little 2 to kind of tie all the pages in together. But first I realized I need to actually write down what was going on. So I ultimately decide to use these red like label stickers and stick one down. I apologize that you cannot see here me debating which size I'm going to use. I start with a small one and then end up switching out for a bigger one. And I just write that we were having a party at Allison's. I figured the Hallmark bingo card kind of explains exactly what's going on. And I also feel like I've included this exact party in a prior December daily. So I stick that down, and now I'm back on the hunt for something that I can include on all 3 pieces. And I start with these multicolor stars, but I don't like the way that any of them look on any of the pages. So I ultimately decide to go with these gold sparkly stars, and I put one on the free space on the bingo card, and then one up on the 2 and one down on the actual picture. Once again, doing things in 3s always ends up looking good. And then I initially started to put the Hallmark bingo card on a patterned paper, but then I realized that that backing is going to match the next day's story, so I decided to just wait. December Daily Story is all about the Patreon Zoom call. I did get these photos printed in 2 sizes because I wasn't sure. I printed out the big 4x6 ones, but ultimately decided to go with these little 3x4 ones. So I do a page protector that's got 4 3x4 pockets. And then on the opposite side, I pick out this giant number 3 to go on the back of the Hallmark Christmas bingo from yesterday. And then I pick out a journal card to go in that fourth pocket where I can write about what it's about. And the next step is figuring out which pattern paper I want to put behind that 3. And I debate this like green, it can't even really tell on camera, it's a green stripe, but ultimately decide to go with this black with gold sparkles. And so I glue that down. And first off, I should have glued it the other way. Step 1. Step 2, when I go to cut it on my cutting board, I totally mess up and line it up wrong and cut off a whole piece of red. And I'm very frustrated at first. And then I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. And that it's not perfect. My December daily is not going to be perfect. And it's not that big of a deal. So then I get to punching the holes, which I have a new hole punch, and it actually is really hard to punch versus my old one. I'm struggling here a little bit, but I punch all 6 holes individually. I know that they make a hole punch that has all 6 across that Allie Edwards shares a lot in her videos, but I just don't work outside of the page protector enough to justify not having just a single hole punch. So after I get all the holes punched, I decide that I also want to put the little photos on that black patterned paper instead of having the white strips from the app that I use to turn them into a collage. So I cut 4 or 3 of the 3x4 little pockets, and then I trim the white spots off of the pictures so that I can put those down onto the patterned paper. So the next step is figuring out what kind of embellishments I want to use to additionally decorate this page. So I'm going through all the different phrases and things that I have and ultimately decide on this corkboard piece that says working hard, because that's what we were doing. We were working hard. Well, they were working hard. I was guiding them along. And so I pick out these corkboard hearts to complement the corkboard piece. And of course, I know you're surprised. There are 3 of them. 3 corkboard hearts kind of balance out the page, and I put them in all their different spots, and then I get to sticking things down. I use an adhesive roller for the 3 and the working hard because I'm out of red line tape. I really should have ordered more before December daily started. And then I get to sticking down the corkboard hearts. I'm very thankful that they already have a sticker adhesive on the back, and I just have to peel it off and stick it down. So then I glue the pictures onto the patterned paper. And then the last step is, of course, journaling and writing what this day was all about. I talked about at the max capacity, or not capacity, but the peak, we had 87 people on the Patreon call, which was absolutely amazing. And just seeing them get to work and prioritize themselves and their goals just made me so, so happy. So I just write my feelings down on the card and say that I can't wait for the next session. And that is going to be it. I put all of the things back in their pockets and wrap up another December daily. I am telling the story of football and how much I love football. So I printed out a couple different pictures of my friends and I at the bar watching football. I felt like the version of us cropped is a little cropped, but I end up deciding to go with that one. And then I took 2 of my TV when Sam and I were watching the Cowboys at night. So then I'm trying to decide which cards I want to include. And originally I'm going to go with the 4 and this stripe. Then I consider maybe doing a quote, and then I consider maybe doing a pattern, and I kind of changed my mind a bunch of times because I really like the On This December card, but I felt like I didn't need a card that had the date and that big number 4. So then I'm trying to decide what embellishments, and I do feel like I've been using a lot of stars this year, but I really like them, and also it's the Cowboys, so I feel like I need to be using a star on this page. So now I'm looking for a pattern paper that's dark that I can put that clear star on top of, but end up deciding to go back to the 4 and just the striped card. And I'm looking for another sentiment and end up finding the silver stars, which of course for the Cowboys makes way more sense than any other stars. So I end up going with the silver stars, and as always, using 3 because it just looks better. I end up moving things around a little bit and putting them in different pockets. And then I get to journaling, and I just write about the fact that I love football, and I love that I have friends that love football, and how Megan and Morgan and I went and watched the 1 o'clock games at a bar. They are Eagles fans, so they were really focused on that game, and I was really bouncing between all the different games. This page also just makes me realize how simple I've been keeping December daily this year, and I know there are a lot of people who post their December daily, especially on social media, who get super crafty and super in-depth, and I have just been keeping things simple, but it helps me get it done, and I would rather have it done by the end of the month than have it be the most intricate, crafty project. And also reminding me that I probably don't need to buy near as many supplies since I do keep it pretty simple. So someone remind 2023, I guess it's August Laken, who's going to buy supplies, that she doesn't need near as many as she probably wants to buy. Today's story is another very simple one. I just have this cute picture of Sam and Charlie that I printed twice because I could fit it, but I only needed 1. And I didn't have a page protector that had 2 3x4 pockets. I realize now I could have used one that had 4 and just cut it, but I was looking for a pattern piece of paper that I was going to use and put the picture on, and then remembered that I had these 3x8 cardstock pieces that already had the holes punched in them. So I just picked out one of those. And now I'm trying to find what embellishment I want to put on the picture. And I'm pretty sure I want to put it to cover the laptop, the glowing screen of Sam's laptop. So I'm just kind of going through all my embellishments and all my stickers. And for a second, I thought I'm going to use these hearts because they were the same colors as the stars, but I really don't like the way that that looks on the picture on the laptop. So I end up going with this other puffy sticker that says this moment right now. And this whole thing will be outside of a page protector. I know it's still hiding under there, but I won't end up using it. So I adhere the sticker down or the picture down, and then I go on the hunt for a number and realize that most of my numbers are kind of big for this story. So I end up going this really little tiny cream 5 that does match one of the stars at the bottom. And then I get to journaling and I just write literally, I didn't know what I was going to do for my story that day. I was thinking about maybe the advent calendars, but then I snapped this cute picture of Sam and Charlie when I was in Sam's office and decided to go ahead and go with that. And I love that it's just a real-time picture of the two of them. And then I add this little heart at the end that kind of fills in that blank space there. Today is all about the advent calendars, and I have the back of this 3x8 card from yesterday to work with. And originally I was going to put a full-size picture there of my advent calendars. I actually took a bunch on my phone, and then it finally clicked that this would be the perfect place to put Jack and Sally. So I use a transparency that's the same size to figure out exactly where I want to cut the Jack and Sally in order to fit them pretty much center, but it's not exactly perfect. I was trying not to get that little green S in like any of it, but I wanted to get enough of the Christmas tree so you could see what she was actually looking at. And then I'm just using the paper cutter to trim that down, using the transparency as my guide. It's not absolutely perfect, and I end up having to trim it a little more later, but it's close enough. And so then I glue that to the back of yesterday's card just using my adhesive roller. And I also realized at this point that I cut up that recipe, but at least I have a clip of it from earlier in Vlogmas. So I go ahead and glue that down, and then I need to trim off that edge. And I was trying to be like Allie Edwards, and she always does this with her X-Acto knife. But because it was a thick cardstock, it was not working. And so I eventually just went in with scissors and was like, why didn't I do that to begin with? So I hole punch the holes over the new piece. And I really love how that piece of it turned out. I also take a moment to glue down this heart again from yesterday. So then I move into the page protector part of this project. I did get a photo of my advent calendars printed just in a 4x6, and I'm just digging through some of my little 3x4 cards trying to figure out what I want to include. I really like that green star pattern, so I end up going with just another simple white one on the other side that says here's the story, and then I end up picking one of those green stickers from the advent calendars because the greens just match perfectly, and advent calendars are always a December story. I start trying to figure out where I want to put the number 6, and then ultimately realize I'm just going to write the date on that card so I don't need it. And while I'm digging for a pattern paper for that 6, I end up finding these felt presents, and I thought that the black looked really good with the black from the other side, and that the presents and the shape, that like rectangle shape, looks good with the advent calendars. So I find a way to add 2. I put a little tiny small one on the page or the picture with the advent calendars, and then the tall skinny one also black on the pattern page. And so I end up having to take off the December stories. And because the felt present is so thick, I want to add a like what I thought was a raised sticky thing behind the sticker. And turns out these little dots that I've had for a very long time aren't actually raised. They're just extra sticky. So it still looks a little bit uneven, but it is what it is. Then I get to journaling, and I just write how I ended up with 3 advent calendars this year. Originally, I wasn't even going to have any, and now I have 3. So I just jot down what they are. If you've been watching my Vlogmas videos, you know about all of my advent calendars. I open them almost every day because not all of them are 24-day advent calendars. And that's it for this story. All right, I finally get to tell the story about how I decorated the tree. I put decorated in quotes eventually because all I did was put lights and the star on it. But I snapped a picture of the tree by itself, and then also this one of Charlie and I, which I had originally snapped in vertical, but then ultimately got printed in horizontal because I remembered I had picked out that little The Tree journaling cards. I love that little Magic Made metallic heart from the advent calendar, and I put that next to Charlie, and then I try really hard to think about if I want to put another one next to the tree, but it says this tree and the card also says this tree. So I ultimately take it off, and then I go on the hunt for another embellishment. For a while, I think I'm going to use one of these little canvas strips that were from last year's December daily, and I kind of leave that there. The one on Charlie's head is not there on purpose. And then I'm like, well, maybe I will use a different journaling card so that I can use the heart that says this tree, because I didn't want 2 things that say this tree. So then I put the enjoy card in there, and I'm trying to also use the heart sticker to cover up the light switch in the corner of that photo. And I'm trying, like, I try really hard to pick an embellishment that does that, but I can't seem to pick one that doesn't either hang off or cut off the star. And none of them really ever seem to fit properly. So I put the tree journaling card that I had originally picked out back into the spot. And then I decide that I'm still going to use a gold heart, but instead of the tree one, I'm going to use the one that says around here. And I try really hard to put it in the corner over the light switch, and I eventually just give up and stick it on the photo and layer it over top of the tree, basically. Then I glue down this number 7. I like how that layers with the other heart. And then I get to journaling, and I write how I finally decorated, in quotes, of the tree. And all I did was put on the lights and the star on the top. But then it was so nice to spend the evening sitting on the couch, working from the couch, watching a Christmas movie. I actually ended up watching 3 Christmas movies, if you saw my Instagram posts, and snuggling with Charlie. And that it was just a really nice evening. I'm really glad I finally prioritized getting the tree up. All right, today's story is about the dinner I had with my friend last night. So I printed off these 2 3x4 photos and had already kind of figured out that I was going to do a page protector that had 4 3x4 pockets. So right now I am going through all of my journaling cards. They have definitely gotten messy in like the last few days. Like, I've cleaned up every day and put all of my stuff away and not let it get like too out of hand, except for the journaling cards. And I knew I had some that were about food, and so I wanted to find those. I love this quote that says, "Count the memories, not the calories." And now I'm trying to decide which 8 I'm going to use. And I'm trying to decide based on where it looks good on the picture and what looks good with all of the pictures in the journaling cards. And I end up going with this wooden 8. So I go through all of my wooden embellishments because I want to kind of match and have, if the number is going to be wooden, I also want to have other things. And I really wanted to include some hearts, but I don't have any like in between sized. I have that one in between size, but it almost looks too perfect. And so I eventually end up swapping it out for 2 smaller hearts that are kind of a little bit more of a funky heart shape. And so instead of having 3 total embellishments, I end up doing 2 sets of 2, kind of very similar to what I did yesterday. So I get started with sticking those things down. I've now become obsessed with these little sticky dots. They are so awesome and so easy to use. Like, I like them better than red line tape. I do end up using regular double-sided tape for these hearts because I know these things are going inside the page protector. I'm also not as concerned about them being stuck down as perfectly if I was having something outside the page protector. So then I get to journaling and I talk about how I took Jason to Hill Country and we had delicious food and an even better conversation, and then attempted to go get a drink afterwards and kind of struggled to find a bar that wasn't super packed. It felt weird for a Thursday night that those bars were all packed in this neighborhood. And I also mess up here and trying to write the word tries. I kind of adjust it a little bit, but it is what it is. If I mess up, I mess up. But another pretty simple day for me, but I really like how this one turned out. So this story is about holiday cards. So I always buy the envelope set from December Daily and use the big one to keep all of the holiday cards that we get from other people. Well, the pattern this year was the same pattern as my album. And one of you commented and suggested using the envelope from the advent calendar. So I basically just swap them out and put all the advent calendar stuff inside that other envelope and use the advent calendar envelope as my holiday card envelope. So step 1 is picking out the number. I was pretty sure I was going to use this big 9, and then figuring out what I want to put in the space of the circle of the 9. And for a while I have that Santa there. I do end up swapping it out. So the next step is finding some cards to put in here. And I'm going to be honest, the story here is that we are actually not sending holiday cards. I typically tell this story on the day that I'm working on our holiday cards, but we decided that we're not doing them this year. And so I decided to do the story on the day we got the first one in the mail. And so this quote that says, "You're allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress," is just absolutely perfect for this story. So I contemplated putting one of those kind of rectangle stickers on the stripes and writing on that, but I decided to go ahead and just write directly on those diagonal stripes. I don't necessarily love how this turned out. I love the colors of those stripes, and I feel like I kind of messed them up by putting my handwriting in between them. Not that I don't like my handwriting, but just I don't necessarily like the way that this ended up looking out. But I talked about how we weren't sending holiday cards this year. We just had too much on our plates, and it made me a little sad because we had so many great wedding photos. So I included the wedding photos in this December daily story. So I originally grab a second Santa to put in the corner of that striped card, but then I ultimately swap it out for these hearts. I just like how perfectly color coordinated those hearts are with the December daily stuff. So I put one on the striped photo, one on the 9, and another one on that quote. I move things around a lot until ultimately deciding that this is how I want them to be. So I stick everything into the page protectors and then get to sticking the 9, again, using these glue dots that I have somehow now become obsessed with. And again, since this is on the outside of the page protector, I definitely want it to be as sticky as possible. Then I'm going to use these attacher sticker pieces. The white big ones are gone because I'm pretty sure I used those last year. So I'm using the black ones, which is fine. It matches with the black quote on the other side. And this whole process and getting it all lined up is much more difficult than I remember it being last year. But I also remember last year like messing it up and not being happy with how it looked. I haven't gone back and looked at last year's album yet, but I eventually get it all stuck down and all lined up to get this envelope stored inside my album. And as we get more holiday cards this year in the mail, I will just flip back and stick them in the envelope throughout the year, and then we will always have them. Great. I couldn't decide what story I wanted to tell about Saturday. There were just 3 different things, 3 big things that resulted in a busy day if you watched that vlog. So I kind of wanted to capture all of them. So I printed out 2 3x4 photos, one of me at the bar, uploading the Patreon replay while also watching the soccer match, and then one from the party I went to. So originally I was going to do this 4 3x4 pocket, and I picked this one journaling card. And then I'm trying to figure out what other embellishment or decoration I'm going to put in that other corner. And I end up picking out these white canvas, like phrase embellishments. I don't even know what to call them, that I kind of feel like capture the story from that day. So I'm still trying to figure out what to put in the other corner. And I decide, what if I go ahead and switch it to 1 4x6 at the bottom instead of doing 4 different pockets. So I start out with this good cheer one. I switch it for a second and realize that I still want it to say December somewhere, kind of like that original journaling card I picked out, even though I know that's silly. The whole album is December, but I really wanted it. I wanted to acknowledge that this day was it felt very December to me, even though the World Cup is usually in the summer. So I end up going back to that good cheer, but using the canvas strip that says documenting December. So now I'm trying to figure out what number I want to use. And I really struggle because I feel like all the big numbers that I have are kind of too big for the photos. I move things around a lot and eventually decide to just use that wooden 10 and put it in the bottom right corner. Then I go on the hunt for some stickers. I want to use like 3 stickers to document the 3 different things that happened that day. So I end up going with these heart stickers that I actually think are from One Little Word one year. So I go ahead and put down 3 black heart stickers, and then I get to adhering all of the other things. I'm just using double-sided tape on these little canvas strips. Again, because they're going inside the page protector, I'm not super concerned about them coming up because it's going to be protected inside. I couldn't decide where I wanted to put it on this one photo. The other 2 people that ended up in that photo are friend of a friend, and so I kind of wanted to cover their faces. Ultimately, I decided not to. So then I go ahead and journal about the 3 things. The Patreon goal setting session 2, which was the first part of my day. I should have put the times. Like that was at 11. The England-France quarterfinal game, sad for England, was at 2. And then my friend John had a holiday party, which he called Johnacon. That was in the evening. And I just felt like this really captured the busyness of that December day. Well, we all knew there would be a day where either technology failed or I messed something up, and that day has come. I forgot to click record on this December daily process, so I'm just going to quickly tell you my thought process behind what I've done so far, and then we'll wrap it up when I finally realized that we weren't recording. So the story today is about the dance video shoot that I had on Sunday the 11th, and so I had these 2 3x4 photos that I knew would fit on the back of the day before, and so I started looking for a 4x6 card to go at the bottom. And originally I was going to journal something, but I also knew I kind of didn't really have much to say about that day. And I ultimately found this quote that said, "May your feet take you where your heart wants to go," which I thought was just absolutely perfect to capture what dance means to me. So then the next thing I did was grab that red rectangle that I knew would be the journaling. It would be really small, but that would be enough space for me. That was from the December Daily Advent calendar a few days ago. So then I tried to find a number 11, and all the 11s were too big. Like they just didn't fit anywhere on this page. So I ultimately picked the red 11 stickers, the red number stickers, because I felt like the red with the red, I felt like it really went together. But there was nowhere that I felt like it popped on any of the photos. So I found this white acrylic. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's a white acrylic heart. And I put the 11 on that. So then to balance out that heart, I grabbed the same heart stickers that I used yesterday and put 2 white heart stickers on each of the other pieces. And then I finally clicked record and just finished up the journaling. All I did was write continuum video shoot on that little rectangle. And then I had to get the acrylic heart stuck down. I used some of those little adhesive dots. And I think this day is really cute and simple and definitely captures what that video shoot and that day and dance means to me. Kick off today's story, I'm actually including an additional photo from yesterday's story that got posted after the fact. So I'm putting these two pictures back to back. I run out of rolling adhesive and I try to find another one and decide to just go ahead and use some double-sided tape. So I'm sticking them both down to either side of this white cardstock. It's not super thick cardstock, but I just wanted to make the pictures a little bit thicker since I was going to keep them outside of the page protector. So I trim it down and then I get to punching holes in them. I consider for a second using those stickers that I used on the envelope the other day, but ultimately decided I wanted to just punch the holes right in the photo. So I line it up with a page protector and decide instead of putting it directly in the middle, I shifted it up a little bit so there would be 3 holes, so it'd be a little bit more sturdy. So I use a paper clip and then try to punch it, and man, I am struggling. This new hole punch, I bought a new hole punch because my other one didn't have a bottom anymore, and I am really struggling to get it to go through the photo, both photos and the cardstock. And so for a second, I'm gonna like do the X-Acto knife. That was a silly idea. So then I decide maybe I'll use the stickers because at this point I've started to make a hole in that top corner that it looks bad. So I thought about using the sticker and that it would cover up. And then I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to keep trying. And eventually when I change the angle and do it kind of closer to my body, I'm able to get it. So then I just add another little heart sticker to that photo to tie it into the other side. So then I am looking for a journaling card to go with this photo. I took the photo of both the camera so I could talk about Vlogmas, but then also the countdown board. And I end up going with this cardstock that says December traditions, since Vlogmas is a December tradition for me. And for a while, I am going to include this still merry and bright. It'll make sense when I start to write about it. That's not in reference to Vlogmas. And I pick out this black number 12, and then I pick these little word phrase stickers that I don't use very often, but it gives me that kind of vibe that goes with the camera, so I really like it. I eventually realized that you can't see it, so I scooted over. The stickers say real and documented. So for a while, I think I'm going to use the 12 and the still merry and bright, and ultimately decide to use just the 12. So while I'm putting the stickers on the 12, I think I also want to pull in some of those word phrase stickers to the other side. I thought I had a set of black ones, but I don't. So I end up going with these green ones, and I pick one that says the season of stories, and you can't even see it. I put it on the bottom, and then I put the 12. And then I get to journaling, and I'm talking about how Vlogmas is part of my December traditions. This is my 5th year doing it, and in some ways it's the absolute best. I'm enjoying this format of Vlogmas the best so far, but in some ways it's very tough because it is my last Vlogmas in New York City, and that was kind of why I wanted to use that still merry and bright sticker, which I do try again to find a place for as part of this story. As soon as I'm done journaling, I try and figure out a home for it, and I don't like the way it looks anywhere. I should have put it with the 12 to begin with, but at this point I can't lift up that 12. So that's it. Another really simple story today, just telling the story of my friend Allison's going away party. So step 1 is finding a patterned piece of paper to go on the back of this card from yesterday, and I end up going with this green one with the gold foil leaves. I just think it looks really nice with the photo. And so for a while I am trying to measure this out. I could have just gotten out a regular ruler instead of trying to use the ruler on my cutting board. And then of course after all that measuring, I realized that the piece of paper is already the right height and I just need to cut it once for the length. So I get the paper cut, and then I'm basically going to look for all of the gold things that I have that matches these gold leaves. So I grabbed these gold hearts from the advent calendar, and then I knew that I had some of these gold like cutout stickers, but they were with my honeymoon stuff. So I went and grabbed that sheet. And I also am using the 13 that has gold on it. So it all just matches together so perfectly. So I just pick out one of these stickers to put, I'm just going to write Allison's going away happy hour and the little heart that says what matters. Again, keeping it very, very simple on this day. And then I just get the picture adhered down. I found another adhesive roller, so here's to hoping this one lasts for the next 12 days. And then I also stick down the 13 with those glue dots because it's going to be outside the page protector. I wanted it to be nice and sturdy. Then I glue the page down to the page from yesterday and then trim off the excess because nothing is ever perfect. Like I can never line things up exactly right. And then I go ahead and punch the holes so that I can stick it back into my album. Another really simple day in my December daily album. Hey, before we jump into today's December daily, I want to start with a trigger warning for depression and suicide. So if this is a topic that you are not in a place to discuss, I want to invite you to go ahead and just jump to the next timestamp on the screen and skip this part of the video. So today's story is actually a sad one that is about the loss of Twitch, Stephen Boss, also known as Twitch, who you may have seen on So You Think You Can Dance if you watched that years ago, or you may have seen him on The Ellen Show. He was also recently a judge on the most recent season of So You Think You Can Dance. And I wanted to dedicate this December daily story to him. So I picked out this quote that I felt like really embodied what I was trying to tell with this story. And I tried to pick out a number, but it just didn't feel right. I ended up just writing the date. And then I just wrote a little bit about how this really hit me hard. I had been watching Twitch for so many years, and to hear that he took his own life really hit me in a different way and reminded me to not only reach out to the people in my life that I know struggle with depression and suicidal thoughts, but also to remember that when I am struggling, to reach out and ask for help. And it can be so hard, but I wanted to include this story in my December daily this year. And I didn't talk about this on the vlog from yesterday when I actually found out, because I just wasn't in a place to process that on camera, and I still am not really, but I knew I still wanted to include it in a video somewhere and acknowledge it, and just to remind you, if it is something that you struggle with, that even though I know it is hard, but when somebody asks you how you're doing, try and be honest and admit when you're not okay and you do need extra support or extra space or extra love, whatever it is that you need. I'm not going to go on and on about this. I kept this day and December daily very simple. I didn't add any extra embellishments, but I just wanted to acknowledge what was going on, some of my thoughts, and obviously not all of them, but some of my thoughts and feelings about it, and then just to share that with you, and remind you all that you are incredible and we do need you here on this planet.
So I knew the story for today would be about the 2 parties we went to last night, and I actually took a ton of photos, but ended up going with this photo of all the latkes that our friend Rachel had made. This isn't even half of them. She made so many and they were so delicious. And so I pick out a journal card, just a simple one. I really need to spend time organizing my journal cards better. And then I'm trying to pick an embellishment to go on the actual photo. I consider that Celebrate sticker from the advent calendar, but then end up going with this Sparkly Joy, which was one of the add-ons for this year, and I haven't used any of those yet. And I really like how it looks, plus joy is a good sentiment. And then for a second, I think that I'm going to use these little stars also from the advent calendar. They are really hard to get out, and the sparkle just isn't the same sparkle as what's on joy. So now I'm looking for another embellishment to kind of add, and I contemplate the star stickers, and then I go digging for like some actual stars and try to layer some things. And I feel like I go through all of my embellishments before I finally land on these little white wood veneer stars. I know I haven't found them yet in the video, but eventually I find them and decide that that is what I want to put in that top corner and kind of do a little trio of the white stars. So then I also put the puppy number stickers from today's advent calendar in the corner, but also write the date. It's a little bit redundant to have 15 on there twice, but it's fine. So then I actually want to include some differentiators to write about the 2 different parties. So I'm going through my stickers off camera here and actually considering using the alpha stickers, but they're red and I don't want red to be a part of this story. So I end up just using the same puffy stickers and do 1 and 2 and writing out party number 1 and party number 2. Yes, it feels like a How I Met Your Mother reference. So I talk about party number 1 was at our friend Andrew and Rachel's, which are some of Sam's friends from college. Him and Andrew were fraternity brothers together. And she is an amazing, amazing chef and made a ton of delicious food with all of the toppings and all the different fixings. And there was also this delicious punch that I was sad to have to leave when we moved on to party number 2, which was a holiday party for a company actually that Sam works with a lot called Artist Strategy. If you've never heard of them, I will leave them linked down below. If you or someone you know is an artist, their company is amazing. And their founder, Josh, him and his boyfriend hosted the holiday party at their apartment, which was also in Brooklyn. And then I went to grab the adhesive and knocked coffee all over my desk. So I finally clean up the coffee, have to get a new page protector. I ultimately decide to not rewrite the story. I contemplate it for a second. I also got coffee. It splattered all over that little joy thing. And for a while, I'm going to cover it up with a star or I'm going to rewrite the whole thing. But you know what? I'm not wasting supplies like that. And I'm not taking the time to redo it, although I probably thought about it as long as it would have taken me to rewrite. But I decide to not to, and am now just gluing down the joy and the stars and then sticking that back into a fresh page protector. Luckily, it didn't ruin any of the day before. So I'm able to save that. And then I decide to use this little embracing imperfection since that's what I did by not rewriting this day. So not my best story, but I feel like it still turned out cute.
Story is about the Christmas party we went to last night, and I took a ton of photos with different people. So I decided to do a bunch of little 2x2 photos, but very quickly realized that they did not come out in 2x2. And I remember I've had this issue in the past with the Pick Collage app that I use to make the collages. Sometimes they don't come out exactly, and I need to figure out what I did to fix that, because I ultimately don't glue anything down because I'm going to get all these pictures reprinted. So the first thing I'm doing is trying to decide where I want to put them and what pictures I want to include. I got both the serious and the silly one of the group photo, and then I have two with Sam, and ultimately I decided to cut both of those. And so that will leave me a little bit more space to play with. So I picked this wood 16, and now I'm trying to match and do wood also for the other decor pieces, which works out because I have a lot of these really cute holiday decor pieces. I thought the house was perfect for a house party, and the little Santa and the poinsettia. And then I pick out one that says December Memories. And I also grabbed Joy and Sweater Season, which I will end up using later, you'll see. So now I'm just kind of moving things around, trying to decide where I want things to be, what I want to put on what photo, and I am struggling to find a photo for this Joy. So I go ahead and temporarily stick it to the side because there is nowhere that I feel like it looks good and doesn't cover up someone or something, and I pull in the Sweater Season one again. And now I'm looking for a pattern paper to go behind all of these. I'm looking for something that's dark so that they'll stand out, but also is pretty simple, because the ones with the words just look like to be too much. So I ultimately go with this dark green, like striped pattern. I just wanted it to be the same for all of them. I felt like there was already enough going on this page. So I cut that piece of paper down into 2x2 squares. And then I realized that the camera stopped recording. And so ultimately what I end up doing, you basically just missed me moving things around for a couple of minutes. I ultimately decide that I want to do the group photo in a big 4x6 photo on its own in front of this, because it just is too small and you can't see everybody and it's just really smushed. And so I want to make it bigger. Since I'm getting things reprinted anyway so that the squares will be 2x2, I figured let's go ahead and get that group photo in a big 4x6. So I pull that photo of me and Sam back in, which is the perfect home for that Joy wood veneer piece. And then I also kind of move things around so that when the 4x6 photo is centered on this page, like outside the page protector, but centered. But I wanted the house to be in a pocket that you could see when the other photo was on top of it. It'll make more sense when I get this all reprinted and finish it tomorrow. So I get the camera going again, and now I'm just sticking those wood veneer decorative pieces still on that patterned paper. I end up moving some things around again, and I just stick everything inside the pocket so that it can just stay there until I get those new photos printed. I don't actually stick any of the pieces down onto the photos yet. I just don't want to forget where I had them. Once I get all of these reprinted at the right size, you can see I'm struggling to get things into the pockets. It will all fit nicely, and then I will finish the 4x6 photo with a journaling card on the back on the outside. All right, first up is actually finishing up the story from yesterday, since I was going to get those photos reprinted and then get the big versions of the full group photos. I still somehow messed up these little 2x2 squares. Some of them are better and they're closer to 2x2, and some of them are still messed up. For the most part, I somehow end up with at least one good version of each picture, except for like one of them, which we'll get to. So right now I'm just kind of replacing them, trimming them down if I have to. Also trimming off the top of this 16 because it sticks out a little bit at the top, but just getting the best version of each of these photos stuck into the page protectors. I really need to figure out what I did eventually figure out at some point how to make the collage into perfect 2x2 squares, but it was not today, and I was not about to go get them printed again. So I'm also finally sticking down the embellishments that are on pictures, since I didn't do that yesterday. And this last photo is the one that I don't really have a perfect version of. It's one option is too narrow and one option is too short. I think I end up going with the option that is too narrow. So that is how that ends up. And now figuring out what I'm going to do with the group photo, I decide that I want to go ahead and put it on some patterned paper. That way it goes all the way to the edge, like I can punch holes and it will still cover up all the way to the edge of the other page protector. It'll make more sense once we're done with it. So I'm kind of measuring that out and figuring out what size I need to make this paper. And I'm just using the same pattern paper that I used on the inside of the pocket so that it all goes together. And originally I was going to do a photo on one side and then journaling on the back, but I ultimately decided to do the serious, if you can call it that, photo on one side and the silly photo on the back. And you'll see how I incorporate a little bit of journaling. So I pick another pattern paper so that I could put that on the back so it's not just white around that photo. And I get those two patterned pieces of paper stuck together. And then I get the photos stuck on either side of those pattern pieces of paper. This is definitely the most crafty that I've gotten this year in December Daily. So I get those pictures stuck down. And then on the front one, I add that wood veneer piece that says sweater season, since it was an ugly sweater party. And then before I get to the embellishment on the back, I actually go ahead and start to hole punch this. So I line it up, I grab my paper clip and line up the page protector with that page, and then I get those hole punch. I even kind of end up doing these little half punches on the ones where it doesn't totally go through, but I don't want the paper to get stuck when I'm trying to turn it. So then I add one of these red label stickers to the back and just write Sarah and Steph's ugly sweater party, just to document who was hosting it. I really do love how this day ultimately turned out. So story 17 is about my tattoo. And since I was working on the back of that 2x2 pockets page, I decided to go ahead and get the picture of my tattoo that the tattoo artist took printed out in a big 6x8. And now I'm cutting it down into little 2x2 squares. I do this pretty much every December daily. I just really like how it ends up looking when you have one big photo that you cut into all these little pieces, and then how it comes together. You'll see when I flip it over. So once I get all the photos stuck into their little pockets, and now I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to add a number, and I like this little clear 17 over just where that black is. And then originally I was going to use the heart for my journaling, but I ultimately go with this envelope because in the vlog I did say that I got a second one, so I'm going to get a photo of that printed and put it inside that envelope along with a journal card where I kind of talk about the process and my tattoos. So I am now trying to attach that 17 with my tiny attacher, and I end up having to refill it because it is out of little staples. So I get that refilled and then get that 17 attached to the one picture. I decide ultimately to keep this day very simple and not add any additional embellishments and just kind of let the tattoo speak for itself. Once I get the other photo printed out, I will add that and my journaling that I'm going to do off camera into the envelope. So this ended up being one of my longer December daily days, even though it was a simple story, but I just could not find things I wanted to use. So I'm telling the story of the first night of Hanukkah, and step one is finding numbers that I like. And I finally go into the individual pockets of the 1 and the 8 and pick out these silver numbers, which for a while is what I'm going to use, and then I ultimately end up changing my mind. So then I start hunting for some embellishments. I pull these little stars from the advent calendar, and now I'm looking for a journaling card since I thought I was going to do 2 4x6 cards. But after going through, it feels like everything, and a lot of stuff I was struggling with because it has gold on it, and I was really trying to embrace the silver for Hanukkah. So I go through pretty much every size of paper, and I do like this one that says holiday all over it. And then I start going through the little 3x4 pockets, thinking that maybe I'll switch to a page protector that's got 2 3x4 pockets at the top. So I start going through some of these. I consider this this day in December one. I feel like I literally went through every single journaling card that I have in my stash. Someone remind December Laken next year to buy the Hanukkah digital download kit. So now I'm also trying to find a word or something to go on top of that holiday, but of course they're all very Christmas related. And then I think about using this pocket, the 18 pocket from the advent calendar, and using that for my numbers instead. And then I pull these silver label stickers out of the honeymoon stash and decide that's what I'm going to use to document the day. And so now I'm going through my embellishments again, making sure there's nothing like silver or Hanukkah related that I wanted to use. And ultimately what I do find is this puffy sticker that says simple joy stories at home, something like that. And I put it on my photo. So then I get to cutting, and I spend a lot of time trying to measure out this 18, trying to get it centered. And ultimately I still end up cutting it off center, which is very frustrating. And I almost switched it out and decided to use the other one because I do have 2, the one from last year and the one from this year, but I decided to just deal with it being off center, and I will use some embellishments to make it look a little bit more balanced. At least it's centered vertically. It's just not centered horizontally. So I cut that down, and then I cut the holiday sheet down into a 3x4 card as well. And then I'm trying to figure out where I want to put this little silver envelope. I originally was going to do it kind of off center. I thought that would look fun, but ultimately decided just to put it in the center. And I tried to use the back of the 18 to try and find the actual center, ultimately just end up eyeballing it. And I just very simply write the first night of Hanukkah. Very, very simple journaling for a very long, what feels like a very long December daily clip. And then we move into the stars. And while these are so cute and I really like the way that they look, they are the biggest pain. Getting them out with the sticky still on the back turned out to be very difficult. So some of them would come out without the sticky, and so I tried to use the adhesive roller and that wasn't working, and then I tried to use double-sided tape, but I couldn't get it small enough to not show behind it, so I didn't really like how that ended up looking. I ultimately discovered that if I pull the sticky page off the back and then punch them through is the best way to get them out. But then ultimately you'll realize when I pick up the 18, they still fall off. They're still not that sticky. And it's not like I'm trying to stick it to anything that unique. Like, it's just that paper envelope. So ultimately I probably will pick this page up tomorrow and they will be like falling off, but it is what it is. That's my first night of Hanukkah story. And since I didn't mention it at the beginning, the reason we're celebrating the first night of Hanukkah is because my husband is Jewish, in case you did not know.
So today's story is all about Charlie, and it ends up actually being 2 stories, but I started with all these small photos of her. I thought I fixed the 2x2 problem to have them be right, and they're just not. So I still haven't figured out that issue yet. Any advice, greatly appreciated. But you should know that all of these photos of Charlie were in thumbnails. Every Vlogmas video this year had Charlie in the thumbnail, and nobody called me out on it. Nobody said anything, or nobody noticed anyways. I just thought it was funny. And I did it like the first 2 or 3 days on accident, and then decided that I was just going to continue to do it the entire month of December on purpose. So back to the December daily story. It ends up being a 2-page spread, which I decided to go ahead and use 2 numbers because I had already had this vision of doing my mom's Christmas tree on the back of this. So I just ended up doing days 19 and 20 together. So I'm looking for some embellishments to go with Charlie. I picked this little card that is super cute that says, "I think this is how we're supposed to be in the world, present and awe." And so now I'm just trying to find some embellishments to go with it. And I do really like these white stars. I also like that they're chipboard and the numbers are chipboard, but then I also really like how the number looks on the picture of Charlie. So I decided to do that on the left and then the 20 on the right side. And then I really wanted to find another dark piece of pattern paper to go and like tie in with the black quote page that I found. I also consider using this gold one, but ultimately I go with this one with the stars, which I really like because I kind of turn it into the theme of Charlie being a star because she was in the thumbnail of every Vlogmas vlog this year. So I'm cutting down first a 3x4, and I'm really picky to make sure that I get that big star so that I can write in it. And then I cut 3 2x2 squares to go on the other side, 1 to go behind the 20 and then 1 to go in the 2 other pockets. And I take a while to pick not only which one of those little 2x2 is going to go behind the 20, but which direction it's going to go that looks best behind the 20. And then I start sticking things in pockets, except for the 2 other pattern paper. You'll see because I'm going to add some embellishments, but I get all the photos stuck in of her. I don't add any embellishments to the photos of Charlie. I just leave them as is. So then I get to gluing down the numbers. For the 20, I decide to do it on the outside of the page protector. So I'm using those little sticky dots so that it will stay for hopefully forever. I don't know how long I expect these things to last. And then I'm just using the adhesive roller on the 19. And then I write that Charlie is a star inside that big star. I just love how that turned out. Then I'm using these little white stickered stars that I think are from an old December daily advent calendar to add some embellishments and some dimension to those other patterned paper pockets. So I pick which size I'm going to use and then get everything in the pockets and get those little stars stuck down. I really love how this day turned out as an ode to my sweet Charlie girl. Hopefully you have enjoyed seeing more of her during Vlogmas this year.
21 for day 21, I knew I wanted to do a big photo of my mom's Christmas tree since it was our first day home in Chicago for Christmas, and it was going to go on the back of all those little photos of Charlie. So I got a big 6x8 photo and then cut it up into the little 2x2 squares. And I know I've said it before, I really love how this looks. So step 1 is picking out the number, and I end up going with the kind of see-through plastic number on the window, on the black of the window. So I staple that onto that individual picture, and then I know I want to use the twinkle in the middle of the tree, but I'm not quite sure if I want to add anything else. So I start by go ahead and sticking the photos into the pockets. That way I can really get a visual of what that's going to look like. And then I will decide what other embellishments, if any, I want to add. And I decide that I want to add something in the bottom right corner to kind of offset the number and then also be able to document that we are in Chicago for Christmas. And that's kind of the point of the story. So I start with this little gray square, end up not being able to fit the word Christmas, and that Papermate Flare does not work well on that that type of sticker. So I pick a different oval sticker and cut off the edge. And then I try to use the micro perm and it doesn't work very well. So I switch over to the Sharpie, which does work a little bit, but I have to go over it a few times and I end up not liking how this looks. So I do waste another sticker, it feels like, so that I like the way it looks. And I tried a few different pens and ended up going with this Stadler permanent pen to write just Christmas in Chicago on that little sticker and document the first day that we were home for the holidays. And then I stick the twinkle down in the middle of the photo. Love how this turned out. All right, this day is for actually December 22nd, and I have these two photos. One is from us apartment hunting in Chicago, and one is our drinks at the movie theater. And so I start by picking out the wood 22, which does then lead into picking other embellishments that are wood. So the first thing I'm doing is going through all of my 3x4 journal cards, trying to pick out what I want to do. And for a while, I think I'm going to use the on this day, but you'll see I end up changing my mind. Also, the lighting in this day is very bizarre. The sun did not cooperate. So for a while, I'm going to use the green on this day with this green stripe. And so I'm picking out some other wood and chipboard. I really like the snowflake since the picture of us is in the snow. And then I end up going with this big wooden heart, and I go through all these different words and end up choosing the words "our story." It just really seemed to fit the story that we were telling. I mean, us picking an apartment in Chicago is the next step in our story. So I try to move things around for a bit, and that's when I realized that the lighting is a mess, first off, and that I actually don't like the pattern paper that I've picked and the green on this day that I've picked. So I end up going with this other pattern and the on this day in December, and again, moving some things around and deciding where I want to put everything so that it looks good. And then I get to journaling, I write the date, and instead of getting really detailed, I literally just write apartment hunting in Chicago and then movie date with my family, keeping it very simple, literally the exact things that we did that day. Next thing, I'm just sticking down those chipboard embellishments with my little glue sticky dots that I've been loving this year. I struggle a little bit with the heart because I originally want to line it up with the lines, but then it would be crooked. So I end up not lining it up with the lines and having it be straight. And then I get that Our Story adhered with some adhesive roller. I'm not too worried about it since it's going to be inside of the page protector pocket. December 23rd story is all about the cookies that we made this year. So I got a bunch of photos printed in 3x4, which ended up not being exactly cut the right size. I don't know what's happening with my picture collage issues this year, but instead of worrying about it and making it perfect, I just keep going. So I do want to use the special traditions little sticker that came in the advent calendar. And so now I'm looking for some other cards, and I found this one that says a favorite tradition. And I originally debate because I feel like having two things that say tradition seems weird, but I end up going with it. I kind of like the theme of all the red that is incorporated in on these different journaling cards. And so now I'm just kind of moving things around, deciding where I want to put them, and now trying to pick a number. And I consider this 23, but felt like I needed to put it on a different piece of paper for you to actually be able to see it. So I go ahead and play around and test that out by adhering it down and then cutting it out. And instead of cutting a perfect square, I actually cut rounded edges around the number and really don't like the way that looks. So I end up going with the black 23. So then I also want to incorporate black in another place. So I pull these little hearts and start thinking about where I'm going to put them, but decide to go ahead and jump to the journaling and write a little bit about this tradition that is not always the same. Like, we do make cookies every year, but it looks different depending on the schedule with all of our different parents and who can be around. And this year, the weather and sickness also got involved. So I wrote down who was at the cookie party. That's not even a good word for it, but who was there this year, and then what types of cookies we made. And then I go through the pattern paper again because I'm briefly considering swapping out that tree 3x4 cardstock for something different. I feel like the tree just doesn't really go with the story. I only picked it because it had the red. So I consider this joy pattern, but then end up just sticking with the tree. So I get the 23 stuck down onto the pattern paper, and then I start figuring out where I want to put the little hearts. So I end up adding some of the black ones, some of the white ones, and then a silver one as well, which really doesn't go with that gold tablecloth now that I'm looking at it, but it's okay. I really like how this day turned out. I love how many photos I was able to incorporate to document all of our cookie baking this year. All right, my Christmas Eve story has a lot of photos because it was the day we actually celebrated Christmas as a family because of how the schedule with all of my siblings' other parents worked out this year. So I printed out some 3x4. I printed out some little 2x2 that ended up being the wrong size. And then I also printed out a big 4x6 photo of all of us that my stepdad took of us sitting on the couch. So I start by trying to figure out what number I'm going to use. And I don't really like and the way any of these numbers look. So I don't end up using any of them. Actually, none of them just look right on the photos. So then I move on to the journaling cards, and I know I want to use this joy pattern paper that I considered yesterday as one of them because joy really feels like it captures what we were feeling that day. And then I went back to this on this day card, and I originally start with the red one, but you'll see I end up switching it. So I'm going through my stickers right now, and I decide that I'm going to use these like word phrase stickers that I'm not usually good about using, but I figured I could find a lot that really told the story of this day. I also put the number stickers on the on this day, but do end up moving them mostly because I decide I want to use the red, white, and green of those little word phrases, and the red doesn't match. It's a different shade of red, but the green does match. So I switch over to the green on this day card, and then I start going through all of the little word phrases and trying to pick out which ones I feel like go with this day. And I stick them on my hand to start because I don't want to stick them down and then change my mind. So I stick 2 of them up on the photo of all of us, and then I stick one that says presents on one of the presents. Those 6 photos are my 6 presents that I got on Christmas. And then I originally want to use the celebrate or the presents, but I can't really figure out a way to incorporate those. So I keep picking up some of these word phrase stickers to go on the different pages. And originally I'm also going to add them on the photos, but you'll see I pick out the one that says love to go on the photo of me and Sam, and really cannot find a place to stick it that I like. I just felt like it looked like too much to have it on 3 different things on that left side. So I end up just not putting anything on those 2 photos. I also briefly consider putting one on this day card, but ultimately end up just writing Christmas Eve in that little space. And then I get to journaling, talking about how we celebrated that day. We had a delicious meal. We played games as a family, although it's not documented in any of the photos. And then we also got to watch the Cowboys beat the Eagles. Sorry, Eagles fans. And then I end up grabbing one more little white phrase that says yay to take up that space and to document the Cowboys winning. So now I'm just sticking all of the things back in their pockets. This is a very photo heavy story since it is our version of Christmas Day, but I love it. So for actual Christmas Day, the story is very simple. I just have this one photo of us playing games that I cut into 2x2 squares to go on the back of those photos from yesterday. And I know I want to use this big red 25 and the pattern paper that says December. I also use a little rectangle in the bottom corner that I can just write relaxing Christmas Day on. And then I also go through my stickers and end up picking out this pack of stickers that's from last year from a different company that's not Allie Edwards. And I put 2 of those down to kind of offset and add a little bit more to this story. So I'm cutting this into a 4x6 and then adding the 25 on top. I debate not putting it in the center, but ultimately decide to center it and then literally just write a relaxing Christmas Day. And that is it. It's a very simple day. It was a very simple day in real life. And I feel like this story shows that. This last one is just a bonus story. I really love this photo that I took from my mom's balcony. I also realized I never stuck down that special tradition sticker. So I go ahead and stick that down. And I want to just have the end of my December daily album be this photo of the skyline from my mom's balcony. I originally considered putting the celebrate there, but I decide I don't like it. So I'm looking for what embellishment I might put there before I pick a transparency, but then I change my mind and go back to going through the transparencies. I really like that house one, but I wish the houses were at the top, obviously not at the bottom. I end up going with the star transparency, and now I'm looking for one of these big words, and I end up debating between believe and love. I really like both of those sentiments here and can't decide which one I like more. And so now I'm going through and picking a big quote page to go on the back of it, which helps me solidify using the word love on the actual photo. So I end up just sticking that down with some rolling adhesive, and then I stick all of those into a page protector with the quote on the back to be kind of the bookend to my album. And then I thought I would end it with just a quick flip through of the entire album. So this is the 4th year in a row, I start with a photo of my Christmas tree and then a reason why page. Here's day 1, day 2, day 3, I did not do a ton of journaling this year. 4, 5, this is upside down. This whole thing is day 6. Let's flip that around. Day 6, 7, 8, 9. And then with 9 is this. I had it out because it was not staying down. I tried to put sticky here. It's still not really staying down. So I'm kind of struggling with this because it's taking up a lot of like bulk, so that's why I kept it out. But this is the other part of 9. I need to add in all the Christmas cards that we got since I did that day. 10, 11, and then this was part of 11, and then these 2 were 12. this one just by itself, I guess, is 13, 14, 15, the coffee spill. Oh, this and the into this is all 16. Oh, I really do love how that turned out. 16, 17. My other tattoo in here that I'm sharing on Instagram in just a few days. 18, 19 and 20 together combined for Charlie. Mostly because I wasn't thinking properly and I knew I wanted to do this for 21 and I lost a day in my head. So 19 and 20 for Charlie, and then all the ones that I just did. 21, 22, 2 pages for 23, 2 pages for 24. I take lots of pictures when I'm home with my family. 25, and then the last ending picture of the skyline. I really, once again, love this project, love how it turned out.
All right, that's it. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you liked it, if you liked that I tacked on this extra video that kind of compiles them all at the end, let me know by giving it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching.